What's up, Nintendo gamers? The Kid here with the very first The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past 2 update. Just for clarification, The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past 2 does not have an official subtitle. So for now, I will just have it listed as The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past 2. But in the future, when it does have an official subtitle, I will redo and edit all the titles for my updates when the game does have an official subtitle. But for now, it's going to be named this until then. So if anyone is confused, sorry for the confusion. So let's get into the news right now. It's pretty exciting, so let's go. Zelda series producer Eiji Aonuma has stated that the game will run at 60 frames per second. Here's the full quote. He says, the game runs at 60 frames per second, while all the 3D games up till now have ran at 30 frames per second. The faster the frame rate, the more stable the 3D effect. So 60 frames per second is a big deal. There are players who don't like 3D and always keep it switched off, so there's nothing in the game that absolutely requires 3D, like puzzles that cannot be solved without it. And that's really all the news for now. So my thoughts and opinion on this, that's great. I mean, running at 60 frames per second, it's going to be a very smooth running game. Like he said, unlike other 3DS games which ran at 30 frames per second, like games that have a really emphasis on 3D, like Super Mario 3D Land, if it ran at 60 frames per second, it would have been a gorgeous, even more gorgeous game, because even with the 3D, which if you don't have 3D shut on, Super Mario 3D Land is kind of difficult to play. It's almost like it relies on the 3D, and the 3D doesn't hurt your eyes, but if it was at 60 frames per second, it would have been a lot better. You think it ran better at 30 frames per second, it would have been spectacular at 60 frames per second. So this game running at 60 frames per second is a huge step up as far as 3DS games. Now, before people say, well, it's a pretty basic game, it doesn't need any strenuous amounts of texture shading and all that. That's not particularly true, because there are games on the 3DS. To be fair, there are earlier games of the 3DS that have a smooth frame rate, but time you turn on that 3D, the frame rate seems to go down at least by 5 frames, and it is noticeable. And it's in and out throughout having the 3D on. So that's really cool. Now, there is Mario Kart, on the other hand, for the 3DS, that I believe was at 60 frames per second. I'm not sure, but I think that it was at 60 frames per second, but it didn't really have an emphasis on 3D. Sure, it looked good, but it wasn't the best, effect that the 3DS had to offer when compared to Super Mario 3D Land and among other games that look really good with the 3D. So I can't really say that there's much of a comparison, since with that game, it just didn't really matter if you had it on and off. It wasn't crucial to anything, nor did it really have a great effect. So this game, I do see where people could be disappointed at the fact that the 3D will not be really required to play the game, because having 3D puzzles in a Zelda game is just something that should happen. That is specific to having 3D on, and I think they should push that. I am a little bit disappointed that the game doesn't absolutely require it, which is fine, but I would love it to at least require it for puzzles that he said that you don't need 3D to solve the puzzles. I kind of have a gripe that they should push the 3D to solve at least certain puzzles, because the 3D effect on a 3DS could be very, very creative with the 3D. You know, you can only see things using 3D, or things only stand out with the 3D enough for you to tell what it is, or do use a switch or do something of that sort, or find something. I think they should have pushed that, at least in some of the harder puzzles and stuff. So it is a little bit of a disappointment, because that means that there kind of is a little bit of a missed opportunity. But I can't really say that for sure until the game is out and everything is said and done and known. So yeah, that's pretty cool that it's run at 60 frames per second, which means it's going to be a fantastic, beautiful game. Running at that speed with no slowdowns, hopefully, or anything like that. It doesn't sound like there should be any slowdowns, since you said the 3D effect will really pop with the 60 frames per second. So, guys, that's my thoughts and stuff. Tell me what you think about the news in the comments below. Of course, as always, there will be links in the description to all this news presented in this update. So I can't wait for this game. If you guys didn't know I was going to do updates on this game, I announced it quite some time ago when it was first announced after that Nintendo Direct. So I can't wait for this game. And if anybody doesn't know, Link to the Past, I don't know if this will be a different Link. Since Dark World and stuff is returning, if it will be like a couple of years later. But Link to the Past, just to clarify, because I know a lot of people don't know this, is not a child. He's actually more of an adult / teenager than a child. So this is not by any means any type of young Link like in the Wind Waker. This is an adult Link. He just looks like that. Because they're trying to stick more to the original SNES version, and you know there was only so much they can do with the Legend of Zelda then, so that's why the sprites and stuff look that way, and that's why this one looks reminiscent of that. He looks like a child, like a young Link, but really he's more of a teenager in this version. So again, that's it for this update, guys. I'll be doing more updates on The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past 2 as more things are revealed. And again, once the game gets an official subtitle, I will update the titles of these videos and, you know, the thumbnails and all that. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.